Fetal Alcohol Syndrome by Brandy Black. Before giving my presentation, I would like to start by giving some definitions. Fetal alcohol syndrome is a condition of the fetus involving central nervous system disorders, growth deficiency, low birth weight, and malformations of the skull and face. The condition is associated with alcohol use by mothers during pregnancy. Behavioral neurology is a subspecialty of neurology that studies the neurological basis of behaviors, memory, and cognition. Neurobehavioral is of or pertaining to the assessment of a person's neurological state by observation of the behavior. Here are some facts about fetal alcohol syndrome. The minimum amount of alcohol required to have adverse effects on a child is unknown. Therefore, no amount of alcohol is considered safe. However, this is not always the understanding of a lot of people. A lot of doctors will tell women that there is a minimal amount of alcohol that they can consume and that will not affect the baby. However, not all studies are consistent with this thought. Therefore, we have discrepancies in research as to whether or not any amount is safe, and many women may not be aware of the fact that no amount of alcohol is safe. Developing babies have the same blood alcohol concentration as their mothers, but they lack the ability to process or metabolize the alcohol. Babies' organs are developing, and even upon birth, many of their organs are still not fully developed. Therefore, they don't have the ability to protect and take care of the alcohol that's in their body. The Institute of Medicine says, of all substances of abuse, including cocaine, heroin, and marijuana, alcohol produces by far the most serious neurobehavioral effects on the fetus. This also is probably a fact that not everybody is aware of. When we think of substance abuse, we think of heroin and cocaine as the worst of the worst in many circumstances. Therefore, it may be misleading to some women that think that just because alcohol is not as bad or have as much stigma connected to it as drugs such as cocaine and heroin, they don't understand the ramifications of its use. The effects of fetal alcohol syndrome vary from child to child, and the extent of the effects are not fully understood. There are instances in which twins or triplets have different extent of alcohol effects upon birth. This leads us to believe that even babies within the same mother will still show varying effects of alcohol. Defects caused by fetal alcohol syndrome are also irreversible. Symptoms. Babies with fetal alcohol symptoms can show any variety of symptoms, from a small number that aren't very recognizable to a large amount. Some of the physical symptoms are distinctive facial features, wide-set eyes, thin upper lip, short upturned nose, smooth skin surface between the nose and upper lip, deformities of joints, limbs, and fingers, slow physical growth before and after birth, vision difficulties or hearing problems, small head circumference, brain size, heart defects, and problems with kidneys and bones. Brain and central nervous system symptoms include poor coordination and balance, intellectual disability, learning disorders and delayed development, poor memory, trouble with attention and processing information, difficulty with reason and problem solving, difficulty with identifying consequences and choices, poor judgment skills, jitteriness and hyperactivity, rapidly changing moods. Social and behavioral issues include difficulty in school, trouble getting along with others, poor social skills, trouble adapting to change or switching from one task to another, problems with behavioral and impulse control, poor conception of time, problems staying on task, difficulty planning or working towards a goal. Specific tasks and examples of fetal alcohol syndrome effects can include verbal learning, visual spatial, attention, reaction time, executive functions, as well as brain structure. Visual learning, language, and memory. Fetal alcohol syndrome can affect language acquisition and learning. Children with fetal alcohol syndrome learn fewer words than their counterparts. However, they are able to recall these words at the same rate and efficiency as their counterparts. Visual spatial effects. Studies with 2 groups of children were done. They placed toys on a table and asked the children to name the toys. Both groups could easily name the items. However, once the toys were removed and the children were asked to put them back in their original place, the group of children that had fetal alcohol syndromes had problems restoring the toys to the original position. Attention. Children with fetal alcohol syndrome are often diagnosed as having ADD, but the difference is in their ability to maintain focus is as followed. The group with ADHD have difficulty focusing and sustaining attention, while those with fetal alcohol syndrome are able to focus and maintain attention. However, they have difficulty in shifting attention from one task to another. Reaction time. Individual differences are in part defined as the amount of time it takes a person to process information. Fetal alcohol syndrome is associated as having slower information processing. They did a study of infants in which they put different stimuli in front of the child to see how long it took the baby to react to the different stimuli. They had the appearance, movement, and disappearance of different items. Those with fetal alcohol syndrome had a longer reaction time, suggesting slower and less efficient information processing. Executive functioning. The child's ability to think abstractly. This includes planning and organization. Children with fetal alcohol syndrome may not be able to do these tasks as efficiently or quickly as their counterparts. Brain structure. Those with fetal alcohol syndrome can have a smaller brain and brain mass. This also includes the disproportional development of different portions of the brain. The following portions of the brain are known and can be affected. The ganglia, which includes spatial memory processes, the cerebellum, which controls balance, gait, coordination, and cognition, and the corpus callosum. An impairment or complete absence of it can be caused by fetal alcohol syndrome. The corpus callosum is a band of nerve fibers that form the major communication link between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. While the effects of fetal alcohol syndrome are irreversible, there are things that you can do to treat a child with fetal alcohol syndrome. One of the most important would be early detection. Figuring out if your child has fetal alcohol syndrome, its implications, and what you can do to help your child are important steps. One thing that you can do to help are find services, especially educational services, that can help your child achieve their highest level of ability. Also, putting the child in a nurturing environment is going to help support the child in developing to the best of their ability. Also, a lack of violence in the home is clearly going to help the child as well. The long-term effects of fetal alcohol syndrome on any child varies with the extent and the actual symptoms of their particular case. Because fetal alcohol syndrome is not a genetic disease, having to worry about it being passed on to further generations is not an issue. The psychological effects of fetal alcohol syndrome on a child can be severe. One of most would be the child's resentment or anger towards the mother, as this is a known risk of drinking while pregnant. The social implications of fetal alcohol syndrome would also vary depending on the extent of that the child has fetal alcohol syndrome. There's stigma surrounding it, and any child with developmental disabilities or physical malformations can be rejection, alienation, isolation. The cognitive effects of fetal alcohol syndrome, again, are going to vary to the extent of which the child has it. They can be severe, moderate, mild, or non-existent. That concludes my presentation on fetal alcohol syndrome. Where I got my information is the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome and their website. The Mayo Clinic, an article in Science magazine titled Ethanol-Induced Apoptic Neurodegeneration in Fetal Alcohol Syndrome, February 11th, 2000, volume 287, number 5455, pages 1056 through 1060. Also from the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, number 55, December 2000.